Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We take a very significant step with this week's episode. We're bang up to date for 1975. Very significant comic indeed. This week we are reading issue 58 of All-Star Comics. Isn't that right, Peter?
It most certainly is. Yes, it is the return of the Justice Society of America in the pages of All-Star Comics. How exciting.
It's very exciting. Worth pointing out, of course, that technically this is the second issue 58 of All-Star published by DC, because as if you've ever read Roy Thomas's piece in the Greatest Golden Age Stories Ever Told collection, you'll be aware of the horrible story of when he subscribed to All-Star Comics, and the first issue that came through the post was issue 58 of All-Star Western. Poor Roy.
Oh dear.
So very interesting move from DC to revive the numbering of the series, which had been dormant in its JSA sense for about, nearly 25 years at this point. The final issue of All-Star 57 to feature the JSA was published at the tail end of 1950, but with a 1951 cover date, which is why it's often I think why 1951 is often described as the year that the JSA went into retirement originally. So, this is the first ongoing series to feature the full team since the end of the original run in All-Star Comics. Very, very interesting. Of course, the Spectre has had a couple of attempts at an ongoing series, but the JSA team itself has not since the revival, so it's taken, 13, 14 years for this to happen?
Yep, and about time too.
And how did it come to pass, listeners, that the JSA were back in an ongoing comic in the middle of the 1970s? Well, Jerry Conway moved to DC from Marvel, where he did great success, with Spider-Man and the Punisher and such like.
And of course, killing Gwen Stacy.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I suppose when I say great success, that was a bit of a stretch. Yes.
Great success, unless your name's Gwen Stacy.
Yes. Many people say that it's one of the comics that mark out the beginning of the Bronze Age, the death of Gwen alongside, the drugs issues in Green Lantern, the first appeals to the Punisher, and such like. Mm-hmm. Listeners, if you have your copy of the All-Star Companion, Volume 3, still available, I believe, at least digitally from Tomorrow's Publishing. We all know Tomorrow's have been caused a great deal of awkwardness by the recent bankruptcy issues for Diamond. So if you're able to go to Tomorrow's Publishing and buy something from them at this point, listeners, I'm sure they'd appreciate that.
Yep.
Volume 3 is a big, long sort of episode guide style feature to the revival of All-Star Comics. It also has an interview with Jerry Conway conducted by Roy Thomas. Probably mention actually at this point, at the point of recording, the weekend just gone, Steve Higgins, our very own fifth Beatle of the Earth 2 podcast, got to meet Roy Thomas at the Two Rivers Comic Con in Missouri. We posted a photograph on the socials, you may have seen it. Steve got to meet Roy. Unbelievable.
Superb.
And Steve told Roy about the podcast.
So, hi Roy, if you're listening.
Yes, hi Roy, if you're listening. We love you dearly. We love your work. We may occasionally be critical, but we love you dearly.
We wouldn't be doing this without you.
I'm not sure if Steve managed to get him to record an introduction or anything. So we'll see if that ever turns up. But yes.
I'm Roy Thomas, and I created the Earth 2 podcast.
I'm Roy Thomas. I created the Earth 2 podcast and Wolverine. So, page 160 of Volume 3 of the All-Star Companion. The All-Star Companion, listeners, if you're a JSA fan and you haven't read these books, they are phenomenal. Mm-hmm. There's so much really good stuff in them. A lot of really good interview material and speculative material and discussion. It's really, really interesting. This chat with Jerry begins with Jerry saying, "My recollection of events from the mid-70s is a bit vague, at least when it comes to the details of why I did things a certain way in a certain issue. At the time, I was writing and editing half a dozen magazines a month with a part-time assistant in an editorial regime that in many ways was the bureaucratic opposite of the system in place at Marvel, where I'd been for the previous 5 years. In contrast, today's comic book editors handle about 4 titles a month under the direction of group editors and with a full-time assistant. My position at DC was somewhat difficult and unique. I was trying to do comics the way I'd done them at Marvel, and that put me up against a pretty entrenched creative structure. It was a hectic, exciting, frustrating and rewarding time, and I was only 23 years old."
Wow. 23?
How old was he then when he killed Gwen? 20, 19 or something? It's crazy. Jerry continues, "I couldn't have accomplished anything at all to the degree that I did without the support and encouragement of Carmine Infantino, Paul Levitz and Joe Orlando, not to mention your very helpful kibitzing," and that's directed at Roy, who then says, "which of course was very much off the record, since at the time I was under contract to Marvel. Do you recall one night in 1975, our talking over possible new projects you might initiate at DC, and my suggesting the revival of All-Star and a full-blown Superman-Captain Marvel fight? Not that I want to claim any credit for what you did with the concepts. I'm just curious. Yes, he does. Conway's reply: I don't recall the specific conversation, but I know we talked about it. Your interest in an All-Star revival certainly put me on the path to championing it at DC. Obviously, because of my age at the time, I was only familiar with the Earth 2 version of the JSA, as per the annual JLA and JSA team-ups. So I think it was your enthusiasm for the team's potential that inspired me more than anything else. So basically, yes, Roy suggested to his pal Jerry Conway that he do a revival of All-Star Comics, and they went with it. So Roy is again, this is Roy being indirectly responsible for us having a show in the first place.
Wonderful. I love those companion books. They're really good. They're quite useful. Once you start reading them, you're totally engrossed, so that's the thing.
Yeah, Volume 1 especially. And I remember there's one feature in one of the issues all about the time when All-American and National sort of fell out.
Yeah,
So there's different characters involved in different stories as a result.
That's how Wildcat and Mr. Terrific rocked up for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And it sort of argues the case that there's one story of All-Star Comics, can't remember which one, in the 20s obviously, where the Spectre, during part of one of his adventures, is wearing a sort of sign round his neck. And someone suggests that this was a redrawn Mr. Terrific story, because obviously the sign was sort of blocking out the Fair Play logo on his chest.
Ah.
That's just one example of the detective work. So again, Tomorrow's Publishing. I think it's just tomorrows.com, but listeners, please go and check them out if you haven't already. Mm-hmm. But it's some more chat from Jerry about the heroes that he chose for the new revived All-Star team, but we'll probably come back to that after we do the story, I think, to be honest. So, All-Star Comics issue 58, originally published on the 9th of October 1975. That's the day after John Lennon's 35th birthday. Worth pointing out, listeners, for our regular listeners and anyone that's been with us for a while, that the final chapter of the Seven Soldiers of Victory story, which we serialised over 3 episodes last year, when about September last year, something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
The final part of that story still hasn't been published yet. It's about 3 weeks away, I think, according to Mike's, that amazing resource. Well, things are going to get, on the show, are going to be a bit timey-wimey from now on, as far as that sort of thing.
Yes, we'll do our best to keep the chronology straight. Don't worry, it'll all make sense.
We have planned this out incredibly carefully and with much precision over recent weeks.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to read along, listeners, this has been reprinted a number of times. My copy of the Justice Society Volume 1 from 2006 is sitting at my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's also been reprinted in a couple of other collections since. And significantly and amusingly, Pietro, this story was reprinted alongside All-Star Comics number 36 in issue 3 of DC Special Blue Ribbon Digest, which also reprinted the Dr. Fate story from first issue special that we did a few weeks ago.
Wonderful. It's like it's meant for us.
Exactly.
Super.
It's a little Earth 2 podcast episode thing in capsule form from summer 1980, and obviously I'll post the cover of that on the socials at some point this week, listeners, so look out for that. I'm holding it up to the camera now for the benefit of Peter and our YouTube viewers.
There we are.
Dr. Fate, down at the bottom saying, I get to do the Dr. Fate voice for once.
Okay, go for it.
Dr. Fate here to tell you that my only full-length adventure is an extra bonus. Inside. That's not how Dr. Fate talks, but there we go. Dr. Fate here. Yes, we know, we can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, after all that necessary preamble, Peter's going to tell us about the cover to the oft-mentioned All-Star Comics number 58.
At the top, we have the line of DC Superstars Cigar Band, and it features a small roll call of some of the people in this issue. From left to right, it is
Dr. Fate,
The Flash, Wildcat, another All-Star Comics logo, Star Spangled Kid, Power Girl, and Robin. And there's number 58, February, 25 cents in the corner. Power Girl, I hear you say? Who is this person we've not heard of? Approved by the Comics Code Authority, All-Star Comics presents Super Squad, featuring the Justice Society of America. Sorry, I just had a massive police squad in colour. Flashback there.
Yes, I don't blame you.
The main image on the cover is a Mike Grell cover, and it's great. We've got various members of the GSA. They're in a kind of a wasteland, and they look as if they've all been defeated by some enemy. Unconscious, we have the Flash with his helmet off. Alan Scott Green Lantern is lying there as well. Wildcat's out for the count. Dr. Fate is at the front. He looks like he's either just about to collapse or just trying to get back to his feet. There is a shadow cast over them. But, coming to the rescue, zooming in from the rear, we have the Star-Spangled Kid, Robin, and a blonde woman with a white costume and a red cape, and some blue boots and blue gloves. Who could this be?
Interesting.
And the Star-Spangled Kid is saying,
"Maybe you were too tough for their Justice Society, but mister, now you've got to fight the Super Squad."
And interestingly, the Star-Spangled Kid seems to be holding some kind of yellow device. What could this be?
It looks very familiar, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
So listeners, obviously there's quite a few characters in this story who we've had voiced by friends and fellow podcasters in the past, but we haven't really given ourselves enough time to rope in Brandon and Kenny and anyone else to voice some of these characters again, so you're going to have to make do with our impressions of some of our pals. So that could be fun. So, into issue 58 we go.
Earth 2. It's a world much like our own, though slightly different. On Earth 2, there are good men and bad, justice and injustice, triumphs and tragedies. There are men as ordinary as we are, and men not so ordinary. You're looking at 6 very extraordinary men, members of the Justice Society of America, and soon to be members of a new team dedicated to the war against evil. A team called the All-Star Super Squad.
And the 6 characters we see, from left to right, are the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick, Dr. Midnight, Wildcat, Dr. Fate, the Golden Age Earth 2 Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and the Earth 2 Golden Age Hawkman, who by this point is just wearing that really, I've never been a fan, to be honest, that rather boring yellow cowl mask with a red Hawk logo drawn on it. They appear to be looking at some sort of screen display, all in various levels of concern, as the Flash says.
I don't suppose there's much chance you're wrong about this, eh, Dr. Midnight?
Oh, I wish I were, Flash. I've triple-checked my information and there's no mistake. Within 24 hours the world will end. And I'm not sure we can stop it. And we get a scroll, which gives us the credits for this issue.
Jerry Conway, writer and editor, Rick Estrada and Wally Wood, artists.
And we get another scroll with the roll call for this issue.
Flash.
Hawkman.
Dr. Midnight.
Wildcat.
Dr. Fate.
Green Lantern.
The Star-Spangled Kid.
Robin.
Power Girl.
Amazing. I do like a roll call scroll. First panel of page 2, a shift in perspective, and we can see the screen that they're all looking at. Looks to be a big map of the world, and Wildcat is saying, "Come on, Doc, you can't be serious. Are you absolutely sure?" "We received a message yesterday, Wildcat, a communication directly to our private computer telling us that a disaster would strike each of 3 cities in the next day. Seattle, Washington, Cape Town, South Africa, and Peking in the Republic of China. Our computer evaluation shows without a doubt that if these disasters occur as scheduled and continue to their climax, the resulting chain reaction in the biosphere would destroy all life on Earth." And that Dr. Midnight furiously points at a button on the screen as Green Lantern says, "I don't understand it, Midnight. Something like this. It's incredible." To which Hawkman says,
"So was the idea of an atomic bomb, Green Lantern, in 1944. The point isn't that the threat might not be real, but that it could be real. As chairman of the Justice Society, I'd like to suggest a motion that we split into teams and investigate each of these disaster spots."
Dr. Fate and the Flash both hold up an affirmative finger, with Fate saying,
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept your proposal.
And Jay says,
"I second the motion, Dr. Fate."
"I suppose there's no point in calling for a vote," says Dr. Midnight, before Hawkman replies,
"Midnight, you and I will take Seattle. Flash and Wildcat, you handle Peking. Dr. Fate, Green Lantern, Cape Town is your baby. Gentlemen, the meeting is adjourned."
And the final panel of page 2 shows everyone zooming off in different directions. Flash and Wildcat waving as they run off, Dr. Midnight and Hawkman powering towards us, the viewer, with Dr. Fate and Green Lantern taking their leave in the background of the picture. Now we arrive at the top of page 3, where there's a whole bunch of captioning.
Hold everything! You're probably wondering why the title of this book is Super Squad, when obviously it's about the JSA. Well, we'll do better than tell you why. We're going to show you why, by turning our attention to someone who isn't a member of the Justice Society, but who is a star of this book. And we mean that Literally. Ladies and gentlemen, reintroducing the Star-Spangled Kid.
Fantastic. Yes, the Star-Spangled Kid, and it's clearly this illustration where his head is taken from for the cigar band on the cover.
Yes.
Sylvester Pemberton, of course, the Star-Spangled Kid, member of the Seven Soldiers of Victory, voiced previously for us by Brandon Peters, and who we haven't seen on the show since the aforementioned Seven Soldiers epic, which we did last year. Sylvester is flying through the sky above a busy cityscape, and he has a very familiar-looking yellow rod-type device in his hand, and as he flies along, he's thinking, man, this is what I call travelling. I can go anywhere with this cosmic rod gadget, around the world or across Seattle. That's one I owe Ted Knight. Since he's disabled with a broken leg and can't be Starman, he felt it didn't make sense for the cosmic rod's power to go unused. I've got to hand it to Knight and the other JSAers. They've been making a real effort to put me at ease. Still, And he looks down. We can see a massive building which clearly has the phrase First National Bank written on it. A few goons in masks with swag bags firing pistols at staff and passers-by. Sylvester notices all of this and thinks, well, your basic robbery in progress. I've been looking for a little action to take my mind off things, and this'll fill the bill nicely. And with that he starts to fly down towards the action. One of the goons in green with a nice orange mask looks up, spots him and cries,
Huh? What's that? Some kid in a nutty costume? Flying?
One of his colleagues says, What's the matter with you, Rizzo? You never see a superhero before? So he can fly. So what? You shoot a creep like him, he still bleeds, don't he? Shoot, you dummy! Shoot! With that, Rizzo fires his pistol with a few
Crack-a-pow-pow!
sound effects. In the first panel of page 4, the Star-Spangled Kid flies down towards them with the cosmic rod in his outstretched right hand. And as he flies fearlessly towards them, he says, That's what I like, gang. A nice healthy show of affection. Guys like you could love a fella to death, which is why I'm glad I've got this rod. You see, it makes a real nifty force field when you need one. And we see, indeed, there's a few sound effects as the bullets bounce off the force field created by the cosmic rod. Sylvester gestures with the rod towards the goons. There's a little burst of Kirby dots, it's the only way I can put it, and Sylvester continues, And as a gun melter, it can't be beat. Rizzo the goon cries,
Our guns! He's making them go soft!
And Rizzo's pal is astonished when he says, What sort of crazy gizmo is that? To which Sylvester replies, I told you, pal, it's a cosmic rod. It picks up starlight and turns it into pure energy. Of course, I don't need it for everything. Some things I can handle myself. And with that, and a punch, he knocks out poor Rizzo with a
bonk.
He then goes for one of the other goons. There's an amusing
Jump
sound effect as he seems to headbutt him in the stomach. The guy yells,
Ah!
and then Sylvester flings him up in the air, and he lands with a
Boom! Ah!
Some policemen in interesting helmets have arrived to round out page 4. We see the goons all being marshalled to their feet and pistols being pointed at them as Sylvester smiles and says, See what I mean?
But after the captured criminals have been removed by a grateful crew of police...
Yeah, we see the Star-Spangled Kid looking a little unhappy. He's sat down at the edge of the pavement with his feet in the gutter and he's holding the cosmic rod in front of him. We can see some passers-by checking him out, obviously puzzled as to what he's doing. And as he sits there looking a little bit forlorn, he's thinking, So much for a little action. It's always this way now, when the battle ends and I realise it's time to go home, and home is 20 years away. Sometimes I think I should have stayed in that time warp with the other 7 Soldiers of Victory, that when the JSA saved us from the warp, they were really dooming us to life in a world we can understand. And there's an asterisk which takes us to a caption that reads,
Shown in GLA 102, Jerry.
And we see a nice shot of the Star-Spangled Kid and Stripesy, surrounded by rotating floating heads of the Earth-1, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Our Man, Dr. Fate and the Flash. Sylvester's musings continue. I belong in the 1950s, not the 1970s. This world doesn't make sense to me. And sometimes I think it never will. If only Stripesy hadn't decided to quit the adventure game, I could sure use my old teammate's thick-headed common sense. At this point, Star-Spangled Kid is getting to his feet, and he notices, what? The ground, shaking, and we can see other people. It looks like they're dancing in the background. One chap definitely pulling shapes. The ground is shaking. People are shaking.
Jitterbugging.
Yes. As Sylvester suddenly exclaims in the final panel of page 5, Great Scott! It's an earthquake! And there is a massive sound effect, and we see cars being tipped over and people falling to the ground and glass breaking and windows shattering and buildings starting to crumble. Oh my goodness.
All at once, the world goes mad. Sidewalks buckle and heave. Buildings crumble. The madness is everywhere. Yet, in the midst of it, one youth manages to keep his head. And more importantly, manages to move.
Yes, we see Star Spangled Kid running into action because a woman with a child on the ground, and there's a massive chunk of masonry about to fall for them. But thankfully, in panel 2, Sylvester is able to activate the cosmic rod, which vaporizes the big chunk of building. Phew! Sylvester thinks, at least I saved that woman. I can't reach everyone. I have to stop this earthquake somehow. He flies up into the air a little, thinking, with the power of the cosmic rod, I could do it. If I only knew where to start, what to do. Catching crooks is something I've done all my life, but this is different. How do I become a bona fide world saver overnight?
Along about now, you're probably wondering what happened to our other heroes, namely the 2 JSAers assigned to Seattle. Well, gang, wonder no more.
Yes, for we see Hawkman, bearing Dr. Midnight in his arms, flying down through the clouds towards the struck city, and they can see in front of them Star Spangled Kid flying along using Starman's cosmic rod. Hawkman sees him too and says,
Dr. Midnight, isn't that the Star Spangled Kid down there?
All I can really see is an infrared blur, Hawkman, but it seems like the kid's heat pattern.
I'd heard he'd gone out to the west coast after our adventure with the Hand. We should have realized he might be here.
And another asterisk takes us to another caption that reads,
Again, it happened in GLA 102, Jerry.
Hawkman and Dr. Midnight's conversation resumes.
From the look of things, he could use some help.
We should do nothing, my friend. Before he left for the coast, the kid and I had quite a talk. It was between doctor and patient, and ordinarily I wouldn't reveal what he said, yet this is important. Especially important, since he possesses the power of the cosmic rod. The kid needs to regain his confidence, Hawkman. More than just an everyday level. Offering our help now would destroy what self-reliance he has, and so I suggest we simply follow him. If the situation worsens, if he can't control it on his own, then we should involve ourselves, not before.
Okay, Midnight. We'll play it your way. I only pray for the world's sake that you're right.
As they hover in the background, with Sylvester manipulating the rod and looking very concerned in the foreground of this panel, we get a big chunk of captioning.
On that rather melodramatic note, we'll momentarily take our leave of the JSA and their star-spangled friend, and shift our story to a spot some 50,000 miles above the Earth, where a peculiar space station silently swings in an orbit around the equator, providing a perfect headquarters for the man known as Brainwave.
Yes, and this peculiar space station is a sort of gold-bronze, sort of copper, combination of all three, if you like, colour, circular, some engine funnel pipes and a few little Star Trek Enterprise-style nacelles, I think that's what they call them, and a few other sticky out bits, for want of a technical way of putting it. And inside we see, as Peter's just told us, Brainwave. This chap has very interesting outfit, blue leggings, red trunks, a red long-sleeved top, a blue oval on his chest, which is interrupted by a yellow wiggly line. He's wearing yellow gauntlets. He has strawberry blonde hair and wearing headgear, which sort of, it's very much like a cross between the costumes of Light Ray and Orion of the New Gods, wouldn't you say?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it's very much the redesign of Orion that they had in the 70s. Mm-hmm.
Brainwave's ears are sort of covered by a sort of red part of a mask, which kind of doesn't come all the way up to his head, but his ears are covered. There's a sort of blue band round his head with white rectangles on it, and he seems either to have really wide, massive white eyeballs, or he's wearing goggles over his eyes, but he looks absolutely manic, and we can see him sat at a control chair with lots of equipment all around him, and what looks like some statues and some paintings, a nice comfortable couch and some plants around him, so he's fairly civilized. He's operating this complicated technical machinery in front of him, and he is saying very much to himself and to us, the audience.
And so it begins. The destruction of my mortal enemies, and coincidentally, the world.
We get a better look at him in the first panel of page 8 as he stands up. We can see he wears red boots along with these blue leggings. We get a better look at the room, all sorts of paintings and statues and things, and all sorts of captioning.
Brainwave. Once he was a man named Henry King. A man with strange abilities, strange power over the minds of other men. Things have changed. He still has power over men, but quite apparently he's no longer Henry King.
As he stands up, pink energy seems to crackle around his fists, and he yells to the room,
For years I languished in prison. I lived in darkness and in misery where they, the Justice Society, put me. So many years apart from humanity, alone in a solitary cell, unable to touch beauty, unable to see beauty, unable to know beauty, other than the beauty I conjured in my mind.
At this, he picks up a painting. You can see some Egyptian-style statue in the background. He picks up a painting which appears to be a dark-haired woman in a purple dress with a sort of white headdress thing going on. It might make it to the socials, probably not, because the panel above is a bit cooler. And Brainwave continues.
I admit it. I went mad. My mind cracked. My ability to reason collapsed, and I went stark, raving insane. All I wanted was beauty, the beauty which I now have because of my efforts at theft. The beauty I was denied by a world too insensitive to the needs of a Henry King. But all that is past, or soon will be. I've sent my message to the Justice Society computer, and by now they're speeding to the 3 cities I'm going to destroy. I wonder if anyone in the JSA yet realizes why I picked these particular cities, or if they even care.
He laughs manically to himself as he looks at a computer screen, and again the pink energy flares from his gloved fingers towards the screen as if he's controlling the equipment that way. A slow dissolve and we arrive at the top of page 9. A caption reads,
Readers familiar with Brainwave are doubtlessly wondering about his apparent physical change. And if you're one of those readers, rest assured, everything will be explained. Meanwhile, as they say, on the terrace of a penthouse overlooking the city of Cape Town...
Yes, a very swish evening party is taking place. Lots of people in fancy smart suits, tall skyscrapers all around. We see a dark-haired, youngish-looking man wearing a kind of very pale orange suit and a dark bow tie, talking to a black man in glasses who's dressed up very well, so obviously things can't be too bad at this point in South Africa. This chap is saying to Dick, "We've been quite impressed by your impartiality, Mr. Grayson. Ever since you arrived last week, you've been most fair, in keeping with the policy of your mission. We have high hopes for your report to the UN." And indeed it is one Dick Grayson, the Robin of Earth 2, the grown-up boy wonder, who replies,
So have I, Mr. Katobi. I intend to recommend a study on the UN attitude towards policies of apartheid, and I hope we can...
He's interrupted, though. Dick exclaims,
What the...
An explosion, says Mr. Katobi. Yes, a massive explosion indeed has taken place a few blocks away. We can see that it's very sizable. It seems to be causing a huge amount of damage. Huge amounts of dark smoke blowing up into the air, and the captioning resumes.
Almost immediately, a wave of noxious gas spreads over the city, billowing from the central core of the explosion, spreading like oil on water.
Yes, and we see it's a sort of bluey-green sort of gas that's drifting around, and some of the other party guests are starting to feel the effects, as Dick thinks to himself,
People are fainting. There's something wrong here, and if anyone can get to the bottom of this thing, it's Robin, the ex-boy wonder.
And very quickly, Dick Grayson has had time to run to his hotel room or wherever it is he's staying, because we can see his orange suit casually strewn about the bed as a figure in a uniform we've not properly seen in the podcast before leaps out of the window. And indeed, it is Robin the Boy Wonder. The grey and blue and yellow Batman combination costume that he'd worn ever since we saw him return in the 60s is gone. He's wearing a new uniform that's very much like his original colour scheme, but he has long sleeves and his red tunic, yellow leggings instead of bare legs, he wears green boots, still has a yellow cape, still has that R logo on his chest, and as he leaps into action, he looks very dynamic indeed. So dynamic, in fact, listeners, that this panel was copied for the Spanish reprint of All-Star Comics 58, so look out for that on the socials this week. We pass a few pages of advertisements for DC tabloids and some toy cars from Matchbox, and then at the top of page 10, guess what? There's some more captioning.
If the world were a nice, neat place where things occurred in an orderly fashion, Dr. Fate and Green Lantern would have arrived moments ago, in time to witness the explosion we've just witnessed, and perhaps even to counteract its effects. Unfortunately, folks, the world isn't a neat, orderly place, and our 2 JSAers have just swooped into town, right into the centre of a catastrophe.
Yep, we see Green Lantern and Dr. Fate flying down towards Cape Town, the big cloud of bluey-green gas drifting around. Significantly, we'll make a note of this because someone was telling me the other day they were reading a Golden Age Green Lantern story where he had the ring on his right hand and is wearing the ring on his left hand, and as they fly down towards the city, Dr. Fate is saying,
Green Lantern, what we see before us cannot be a natural event. There are no gas pockets in this part of the world.
And that's not all, Fate. According to a spectral analysis by my green beam, this gas is composed of fluorocarbons, the outlawed inert gas which destroys the Earth's ozone layer. Manufacturers once used it in aerosol cans before the government learned about its deadly effect and stopped its production.
Then this is an artificial disaster, which implies that the message we received is real, and this is no coincidence.
Dr. Fate whirls his head round quickly at this point because, to the tune of a nice little sound effect, Green Lantern is suddenly struck by the fluorocarbon effect and yells, "Dr. Fate, the gas, it's..." puts a hand up to his throat as Dr. Fate thinks,
No natural phenomena could act this way, but a natural phenomenon might disperse the gas, without contributing to the chaos which is already corrupting this entire area.
And at that, Dr. Fate gestures with his left hand, and some loosely jaggedy-looking yellow energy emanates from his hand and flies up towards the clouds overhead, which makes it start to rain. We will point out that at this point, Dr. Fate is not causing an ank when he gestures for his magic.
No.
We'll see if that happens. Green Lantern seems to be falling almost out of the sky. His ring firing a power beam. We'll see if there's any follow-up on that. There's a caption to start off page 11.
Within seconds, Fate's spell produces startling results.
Yes, thankfully, Green Lantern seems to recover. Indeed, he says, "Between my power ring beam and your magic, Dr. Fate, we seem to be disposing of this death gas in no time flat."
Appearances are often deceiving, Green Lantern. We mustn't allow ourselves to forget the danger is anything but past.
And at that point, Dr. Fate gestures and points down to the ground where we see the big hole that the green-bluey chloro gas seems to be emanating from. And again, we should say that in panel 1, Dr. Fate's still gesturing to affect the weather, and it just looks like the old little radiating yellow waves of energy which he used to deliver before first issue special.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Green Lantern, being made aware of the hole in the ground, says, "I see what you mean. Wherever that hole came from, it's still spewing gas as fast as this rain can dissolve it. I wish I were a scientist, and I could deal with menaces like this on a really cerebral level."
I'm afraid I don't follow your meaning, my friend.
Well, for example, a scientist might come up with a chemical to act as an antidote to this stuff. But since I'm not a scientist, I can think of more direct solutions, like this. And he gestures with his power ring, and we see a massive green cork appear, which with a whoomp slams into place, plugging the hole in the ground that the gas was coming from. Dr. Fate and Green Lantern alight and look up at the cork. Dr. Fate says,
True, it's not a cerebral solution, Green Lantern, but for the present, it will do.
"Thanks, Fate. From a thinker like you, that's a compliment. Hey!" And he turns for some reason, because he spots someone lying unconscious on the ground. "Say, it looks like we've got some company, Fate."
Robin!
We are continuing the third page following, but before we get there, we pass an advertisement for Big Jim's pack from Mattel, including Warpath, the Whip, Big Jim himself, and of course, Dr. Steel, the Enforcer. He's the mysterious strong man with the gleaming steel hand and that strange tattoo. And if that doesn't describe me, I don't know what does. In the first panel of page 12, Dr. Fate and Green Lantern have crossed to Robin, and they're helping him to his feet. He sits up, awake, and says,
Oh, I must be getting stupid in my old age.
"Aren't you a little far from home, pal?" says GL.
Guess so. In Gotham City, I'd never attack a gas leak without a nose filter.
He rubs his forehead.
Woof. Head, stop spinning. Green Lantern raised an interesting point, young friend. Why are you in Cape Town? It seems an odd coincidence. Say, are you suggesting I had anything to do with...
Robin's protest is cut off before he can complete it, as with a muffled whoomp...
Yes, massive whoomp. We see Green Lantern's power ring rendered cork fly up into the air. GL, we can tell he's appalled. We only see the back of his head, but he's appalled when he says, "The cork! It wasn't strong enough! Can't... Ugh!" And Green Lantern seems to pass out.
And when the vibrations have ceased...
The green gas again billowing up into the sky, we see Dr. Fate and Green Lantern both lying outstretched unconscious on the ground. Robin still standing, still rubbing his head, thinks,
Dr. Fate and Green Lantern were both in front of me. The force of the explosion knocked them out, but their bodies protected me. I've got to use the chance they bought me pronto. This time I won't forget my nose filters, assuming they'll help. Assuming I can do anything to stop that monstrosity in the first place.
It's a nice close-up of Dick's blue eyes here, positioning the nose filters using his gloved hand. A little caption reads,
We'll have to leave that problem unsolved for the moment while we turn the page.
"Oh, wow. This looks terrific." Top of page 13. Guess what? there's a caption.
Instead of returning immediately to Robin, we're going to switch to another scene on the opposite side of the world. The place, Peking. The problem, an inexplicable newborn volcano. The heroes, Earth 2's Flash and Wildcat.
This is a spectacular panel, listeners. I'm going to make sure this ends up in the socials. Cracking shot. I don't think it actually really resembles Peking, to be honest. But we can see a volcano, a classic-style illustrative volcano with lava pouring out of it and flames and ash and clouds burning out the top and lots of panicked Chinese people who are not drawn in a very stereotypical style at all. No siree. As the Flash and Wildcat run through the grass that's immediately outside Peking town centre, with Wildcat being borne along behind in the Flash's slipstream, Ted is saying, "Hey, Speedster, can't you slow down? All this running is making me dizzy."
Hang in there, Wildcat. We're almost... Good Lord!
Yes, Jay is obviously just taken in everything that we've just described. He's obviously as appalled by the stereotypes as I am. There's a very amusing sound effect as Jay comes to a halt, and Wildcat says, "Hey, watch those sudden stops, Flash. If I wasn't so good at my feet, there'd be splattered cat all over the countryside."
Never mind that.
Never mind? You're talking about my body, Flash.
I said never mind. Look.
Huh? Look at what? Good Lord. But it's impossible. There can't be a volcano here. Not here. Jay says,
"But there is, friend. And unless we act quickly, thousands of people are going to die."
Flash runs off at this point, saying,
"Get yourself some separate transportation, Wildcat. I've a feeling I'm going to need total freedom of movement to fight this battle. And if my guess is right, so will you."
This is hilarious. Listeners, I kind of want to put the next 2 pages on the socials in their entirety because they are phenomenal. Wildcat, in response to Jay, says, "Great, I'll just borrow something from one of our Chinese brothers." And he obviously has leapt onto a handy motorbike, very like the one that he's been using in other stories. And he roars off after Jay, saying to a poor unfortunate who seems to be floating in mid-air, "You don't mind, do you, fella? Thanks. I didn't think so." And the poor local can only gawp as his hat flies off and everyone else around him panics. First panel of page 14, the Flash is speeding towards the volcano.
"I don't have the physical strength to simply plug the volcano, and with Superman away, I can't call on him for help, so I'll have to rely on my intelligence and my own special skill, which is speed. I've got to really pour it on, depend on friction to heat the ground under my feet, and by crossing and recrossing the same stretch of earth, dig a trench for the lava to fill."
This is 10 out of 10 comic book storytelling here, listeners. Over the space of this half a dozen panels, we see Jay running up and down, carving this trench in the ground. We see the volcano active in the distance. We see the lava pouring down the side and then into the trench which Jay has dug. It's immaculate. This is phenomenal. Jay stops to kind of mop his brow, take a little rest, and he thinks,
"Man, the heat from that lava is incredible. Feel like I've just run a mile in a giant steam bath."
Roaring up beside him on his motorbike, leaving a massively unhealthy petrol fumes cloud behind him, is Wildcat, who arrives and says, "Hey, hero, got anything for me to do?"
"Wildcat?"
"Yeah, remember me? I'm the guy you left stranded below. What's cooking, Flash? Besides us."
"For the moment, nothing. I managed to divert the lava flow, but that's only a temporary solution. We need to... Eh?"
But Jay breaks off. He's interrupted by a
Swoosh!
sound effect as flying overhead is a very statuesque blonde girl wearing a white leotard with a hole cut out at her chest. She's wearing blue gloves, blue boots, a low-slung red belt and a red cape which seems to be secured by a golden cord around her neck. Wildcat looks up and yells, "Who the heck is that?"
We'll have to wait a minute for the answer to Wildcat's startled question, since what's happening is more interesting than who's doing it. And what's happening should be fairly obvious.
Yes, because this new arrival has flown down and seems to be grabbing some of the lava which is pouring out of the volcano and then pulling it back up on itself and using it to plug the open maw of the volcano itself. It flops into place with a massive... Oh, very good. You've been practising. You could get a job doing sound effects in the 1971 John Pertwee story with that talent, matey. You've been hiding that under a bushel. Anyway, as Wildcat and Flash look on, Wildcat says, "I don't believe I saw that, Speedster."
"Wildcat? Neither do I."
First panel of page 16. Glamorous, striking, devastating new arrival flies down and lands in front of the Flash and Wildcat, saying, "Sorry I startled you, gentlemen. I promised my cousin I'd wait a few more months before revealing myself, but then when I saw the trouble you were having with the volcano, I decided I couldn't wait."
"Whoa, girl. One step at a time. We don't know who you are, never mind your cousin.
Yeah, how about an introduction, sister? And a delicious Dutch tilt in this panel, our new arrival, says, "You can call me Power Girl, Wildcat. It's as good a name as any other, and it won't confuse me with my cousin. His name? You already know. It's Superman."
Superman is your cousin? But all his relatives died in Krypton years ago.
There's another asterisk, which takes us to another footnote, which reads,
Obviously, on Earth 2, Superman has kept Power Girl's existence a secret longer than he did on Earth 1. Honest, no lie, Jerry.
Power Girl replies to the Flash saying, "It's a long story, Flash, and there's no time to dwell on it now. Look." "Huh? Hey, we're under attack," exclaims Wildcat as they all look and see that some representatives of the local Chinese army have arrived. We probably won't put any of these panels on the socials, listeners, because, frankly, the rendering is a little bit offensive. Wildcat gets stuck in to the new arrivals in the next panel, throwing fisticuffs everywhere as he says, "Now this is more my style. I'm a boxer, not an earth mover. Why don't both of you back off and leave this to me?" Wildcat. Neither you nor the Flash can handle this quickly enough. All I need to do is this. And with that, Power Girl stamps her right foot, which creates a massive sound effect, presumably rattles the ground, and we see in the background the new arrivals in the Chinese army being thrown all over the place. The Flash says at this point,
Lady, a man could get to hate you.
"Come on, Speedster, don't you know flattery won't get you anywhere? The trouble with superpowers is to make you forget how much fun an old-fashioned uppercut can be when you do it just right." With a wonk, we see one Chinese soldier sent flying. "Me, I'll never forget. Never." And punched out yet another unfortunate with a bromp sound effect. And when he says there, he'll never forget, he's obviously referencing Take That's #1 single from summer of 1995. The next panel, we see the Chinese army all out for the count as Wildcat rubs his knuckles and says, "Now, what were you saying about a crisis?" Crisis, Peter? Oh.
I know, crisis.
Power Girl replies, "I know all about this disaster game the JSA is playing, and I've got a good idea who's behind it and where he's located."
Very interesting. Care to tell us how?
Says the Flash, of course. "Let's simply say, a lady with powers like mine gets around. The point is, these disasters are decoys, designed to weaken you in a way I haven't yet figured out. In Seattle, Hawkman and Dr. Midnight are allowing the Star-Spangled Kid to handle that city's disaster, while in Cape Town, Robin is fighting a menace neither Dr. Fate nor Green Lantern could defeat. By the same token, I did the work here, while you stood by almost helpless. Gentlemen, something is seriously wrong. I suggest we join the others, help them with their disasters, and see if we can learn the reason for all that's occurred."
Maybe you've got something there, Power Girl. What you're saying is odd.
"It's more than odd, Flash. It's crazy. Us needing help from a bunch of kids?" "Well, we all need help sometime, Wildcat. Even the JSA. Why won't we worry about it later, after we've saved the day?" That Power Girl grabs Wildcat by the wrist and flies off. The cat can only exclaim, "Hey, what a yow!" From the ground, Flash, starting to speed after them, says,
Take it easy, Wildcat. She's only giving you a lift. And if what she implies is true, we may all need help in these next few hours.
"Great. Help like this the JSA could do without." Oh, wow, she isn't flying. We can see actually in panel 2 of page 18 that Power Girl is jumping and bearing Wildcat with her. Wow. She's literally leaping the equivalent of tall buildings in a single bound as Wildcat continues his moan saying, "Jumping around gives me a headache." Power Girl gets a close-up in the next panel as she says, "Then for the time being, don't consider yourself part of the JSA, Wildcat. Pretend you're part of a new team, a strike force, composed of the JSA and we three new heroes. Robin, Star-Spangled Kid and me. You know, a super squad." And as it continues to bounce through China, Wildcat replies, "Swell. Now we know our name, still I haven't heard who it is we're supposed to be fighting." "Didn't I tell you, Wildcat? His name is Brainwave." Wildcat and the Flash look astonished as a closing caption reads,
Next issue, more on the mysterious Brainwave, Power Girl, Robin, and the Star-Spangled Kid, the JSA, and of course the Super Squad, in a story titled Brainwave Blows Up, on sale the third week in December.
"Go us!"
Yes. You know a super squad, says Power Girl. Or what's wrong with Justice Society Task Force?
Or the All-Stars.
Yes. That'd have been good.
Very quickly, before we start, I'll point out that Charlton Comics published a series called The Fightin' Five. which I've seen on a number of issues, bears the line that describes them as America's Super Squad.
Aha.
Was that an influence on the creators of All-Star Comics? I don't know. We'll have to
Gasp.
get someone to track down Jerry Conway and ask him. Well, I'm going to stick my neck out here and say that was absolutely fantastic. One of the most enjoyable, action-packed superhero comics we've ever done.
Yes, very classic Justice League style, actually, you know, with the team splitting off into 3 groups. Yeah, there's a whole lot to talk about here. I think we should probably go through it pretty much chronologically. Because right from the start, you've got the emergency meeting, and of course, the JSA started off in one big meeting, where they're all sitting around the table, all talking about their adventures. I don't know if that was a deliberate callback or if it was just the easiest way to start the actual story, but it was great just having them there together.
It's a nice idea to think of as a deliberate callback. I mean, they're obviously, I think they've assembled because they've had this warning.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting team. Another pull-out quote from Jerry Conway,
Mm-hmm.
quoted here from issue 106 of Tomorrow's Publishing's back issue, probably still available digitally because it was published in 2018. Go and check it out on the Tomorrow's website, if you please. Jerry is asked why these 6 to start with, and his comment is, the ones I picked were my favourites of the JSA, but they were also the characters I thought that had the most potential, characters who had interesting speech patterns and personality traits, characters I thought sat well with the kind of stories I wanted to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's quite interesting because it is a really good mix.
Yeah, true. I mean, you do have the ones that got the obvious Earth 1 counterparts,
Mm-hmm.
Flash, GL and Hawkman, and Wildcat as well, to a certain extent.
Yes.
A less obvious Earth 1 counterpart.
Yeah, because the one thing that Pete and I noticed during the record is the caption at the top of page 14 refers to the heroes Earth 2's Flash and Wildcat. And we liked that because it didn't say that there wasn't an Earth 1 Wildcat.
No.
It didn't refer to the others in any of that sort of way.
No, very true. Very true.
I'm taking that as more evidence that the Wildcat we've been reading about in Brave and the Bold is not the guy from the JSA.
Yep. There we go. We will die in this hill.
Yes.
That's fine. I'm a bit concerned, though, that Dr. Midnight seems to have received this warning yesterday and is only just getting the team together to deal with it. That's a bit worrying.
Maybe they're all scattered.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
Let's think, when was the last time we saw the JSA at this point? It was the Elliot Magan and Carrie Bates story, wasn't it? That was this year, wasn't it? All right.
Yes. Featuring Elliot Magan as God.
I got myself into trouble recently, listeners, when I was talking about the last time we saw Dr. Fate and said it was in a Flash story, which I thought was last year, but it was actually earlier this year. We might have recorded it last year, I can't remember. But yeah, I think it's definitely the most recent time we saw the JSA was in that story, and they didn't have too much to do in it, really.
No, true.
This is quite elite, because we've gone over the last year or so of not really seeing the Justice Society at all. To boom, here they all are assembled, just carrying on like it's a regular day, in a way.
Yep. In their own book.
Yes.
I mean, that's incredible. Their own ongoing series, admittedly bi-monthly, but their own ongoing series.
I felt reading this that it felt a lot more like a Marvel comic than a lot of the stuff we've done.
Yes, very much so. This is going to be something going forward, especially now that Jerry Conway's reached DC.
Yeah.
Because he brings over that Marvel style, the Marvel soap opera, the Marvel sensibility and continuing subplots. All that comes with him.
Mm.
In the books that he deals with, there's far fewer standalone stories.
Yeah.
Most of these ones we'll be doing are like 2-parters from this series.
Yeah.
But it crosses over all his titles, pretty much.
Yeah, that's going to impact listeners going forward in the way that we cover a lot of stuff. And we're going to do the first couple of issues of the Revived All-Star separately, but going forward with those 2 or 3-part stories, what have you, we'll do them all in one go.
Mm-hmm.
In the style we patented with our Black Hawk episode a few years ago, so we part reading, part summary. But you're right, the Marvel soap opera sort of thing is there.
Yeah.
When we've got the Star Spangled Kid sort of monologuing to himself for a couple of pages in a very real Spider-Man sort of sense.
Yes.
I think it's brilliantly done.
Mm-hmm.
Trouble is, it's that thing where he's thinking to himself in such a way as so that we readers are up to speed, but it's not really the sort of way that a person would think to themselves. Ideally, he'd be having a conversation with someone and telling them that Stripesy had retired and that Starman broke his leg and that, that's how he's got the...
Exactly.
Info dump by Thought Bubble isn't my favourite way of getting information over, but it's very interesting because it's the first time that Ted Knight, never mind Starman, has been mentioned in a very long time.
Yep. And, of course, this grandfather's Star Spangled Kid into the Starman legacy.
Yes.
Which is great. It makes him like a proper part of the legacy, part of the team, part of the family. He's one of the stars.
Yeah. And obviously this is the point where we'll quickly recommend that our listeners check out our pal Ross's ongoing Opal City Confidential, his Starman podcast. He has dealt with this sort of stuff, I'm sure, in the past already, and I think when he gets to Stars and Stripe, there'll be a bit more chat about the Star Spangled Kid.
Yep.
It was nice to see the little floating heads as Sylvester thought about what was going on.
Yes.
That was very Marvel, I felt. That seemed very Roy to me as a device. Roy's a big fan of floating heads of people reacting to stuff going on. I can think of many Avengers covers or X-Men covers where that sort of thing happened.
Uh-huh. And speaking of very Marvel, you have a patriotically dressed hero who sits down and mopes about being 20 years forward in time.
Oh my goodness.
Instead of going from the 40s to the 60s like Captain America did, he's gone from the 50s to the 70s. It's a great parallel.
It is. I'd never thought of that before. That's fantastic. But it's interesting just the fact that they specify the 50s, because does that then suggest that from the Seven Soldiers' point of view, the events of JLA 100 to 102 happened in the 1950s?
Well, it looks like, they were taken out of time in the 1950s, and then, when they came back.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting thing to think about too, because we didn't really get that information specified in that story, which obviously is a few years ago now.
Yeah. And listeners, if you haven't heard it, you should check out our full audio dramatisation of that story. We did a phenomenal big omnibus episode of it.
Yes.
The start of last year? Yeah.
Yeah, start of last year when you were unwell. Peter Watson is unwell. Yeah, and again, I'll big it up as well, because Pete did an astonishing bit of work putting that together above and beyond, and it's definitely the most elaborate and most full audio drama type. Don't tell the lawyers.
And with a cast of dozens, we must thank everyone again for taking part.
Absolutely. And I'm sure some of them will be back before too long. In fact, 2 of them were back last week, so...
Yes, okay.
At the point of recording, Steve hasn't yet done his lines as Murray Bolton off, but we're hoping that will happen. Yeah, so the last time we saw Star Spangled Kid, obviously, was in the Seven Soldiers story that was serialised over a few issues of Adventure Comics, which we covered 7 or 8 months ago now.
Yeah.
Again, that was another multicast epic, which featured a couple of people who helped us out last week. Hi, Ross and Steve, if you're listening. Ross, will you have listened to this episode before me? I'm not going to bet any money on it because I'd probably lose. It feels quite a modern sort of thing that the Star Spangled Kid's particular narrative is taking a bit of a leap, and he's got to fill the audience in on it.
Yeah. You would think, though, he would talk to his fellow Seven Soldiers about being thrown out of time and about how they're all feeling. And obviously, Stripes is his partner, but there are other ones there as well. And the Shining Knight is someone who is used to being out of time. So surely he'd be someone he should definitely be talking to. That's
an excellent point. Yeah, maybe Sylvester feels that he can't. Maybe the others are quite happy. I don't know. That's a very good point. I mean, I often think there's so much potential. They keep hinting at it, like when we had that recent Stargirl miniseries in the Spring Break special, which 4 years ago now or something.
Yeah,
there was still hints there that we might see something else of the Seven Soldiers, but. Jeff doesn't seem to be working for DC anymore, so that seems to be something that he's been teasing since Stars and Stripes, that we'd get a new Seven Soldiers series that might touch on this some sort of stuff, but it's never going to happen, I don't think. This is him, obviously, the first time Sylvester has really appeared alongside the JSA and as a member of the team, which is something that he's going to become very quickly. He's going to become a regular part of this book, and he's going to hang around with the JSA for the foreseeable, really.
Yes. What are your thoughts on Dr. Midnight breaking doctor-patient confidentiality here? It's a bit kind of...
Yeah, it's a bit off, innit? But he thinks that Hawkman can be trusted, or he has to kind of... But you're right, it's a bit... Yeah, it's not very good. It's not a good show. So Brainwave, then, who previously appeared in All-Star Comics 37. I can't remember what he looked like before previously, can you?
Yes, he was kind of like Dr. Savannah-ish, except with a much bigger head.
Of course.
With his green tunic on, his big glasses and his big bald dome.
That's right.
As well as the solo stories, he was also in the Injustice Society story.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember the cover where the heroes are all tied up at the back and they're all carving up. I do remember what he looks like. Yeah, I remember him in that cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brainwave, yeah, very much to be said, looking like a cross between, Orion Light Ray and Geoforce and any random background member of the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh yeah, It's interesting he's got this satellite that he seems to have constructed out of nothing and filled it with all these art treasures. It's like, well, just retire, mate. You've got...
Yeah.
You don't have to kill the Justice Society or destroy the world. You've got, all these treasures. You could obviously do pretty much anything, so... Just relax and enjoy it. Yeah. You've got away with it so far, so yeah.
You could just be chilling like a villain.
Have you ever considered not being evil?
Yeah. I suppose if we're jumping through it chronologically, that brings us to Dick Grayson's new job as a United Nations envoy. I like that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And it's interesting that they're making a comment on apartheid there, because we don't know what the apartheid situation is in South Africa, on Earth too. But he's recommending a study towards policies of apartheid. Hopefully he's against it.
Oh God, I hope so.
It's not actually stated there, but I would think.
Yeah,
Again, it's the Marvelisation, for lack of a better word. It's the entry into the Bronze Age. It's the trying to be a bit more relevant and bring in modern day topics. And obviously they're not really discussing a situation here, but just the mention of it is just like, oh, a kid might read that and say, what's this? What does that mean? And try and find out, and hopefully they would think the right things. Yeah, it's fascinating that that's his job now. And it does seem kind of like a natural progression for his character, because obviously, you can have such things as Jerry Halliwell being a UN ambassador, etc., etc. And obviously, as this rich socialite, he's in a position to, meet people and do things, go places.
He is in that position to influence, to use a little bit of modern terminology.
Yes. Plus, he's a lawyer as well. It's a really interesting development for the character. And you could remember as well here, Dick must be in his mid-40s, at least, I'd say.
If he was, 10 or 11 when he started with Batman, then you're right, he probably would be in his 40s. But there's been stuff about how time moves at a different rate.
Yes, true.
On Earth 2. So, he probably, you're right, he has to be, you're right, he has to be over 40 at least. It's interesting that he has ditched the costume that only you and I liked.
Yes. I think there are another 3 people I found on Facebook that liked it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's very much like the costume that the Earth 1 Dick Grayson wore in that crossover, JLA JSA crossover, where the 2 Robins teamed up.
Yeah, 91, 92. Was it him or was it the Earth 2 one that wore? Oh, you're right, it was the Earth 1, yeah.
Yeah.
It's obviously, I think, what it's based on.
Uh-huh.
It's much less trying to be a Batmanized version of Robin. It's very much Robin being Robin.
Yes, uh-huh. But again, not in the short shorts, just, a proper adult, mature superhero costume, if you can reconcile such a thing.
Yes, whoever heard of men in their 40s cutting about in shorts when they're at work? Harry Hill style look at camera. Interesting to see Dr. Fate not using an ankh. We'll have to wait and see it, as we said, how long that takes to drip through.
Yep, definitely. And of course, knocked out by gas, because that's one of the things he's actually vulnerable to.
It's nice to see Green Lantern doing some proper, fun Green Lantern power ring usage stuff.
Yeah. Yep, putting a cork in it. That's quite amusing, yes.
The stuff about fluorocarbons and the ozone layer and being used in aerosol cans before they're being banned, I don't think that happened in our country till much, much later.
Nope.
I remember in the mid-late 80s, all the stuff about CFCs and chlorofluorocarbons and the hole in the ozone layer was, because I remember being on Newsround and the news quite a lot, round about the time I was sort of 15, 16. Because the only other sort of reference to this sort of thing that I can remember from this sort of period was there was an issue of the Defenders guest starring the Guardians of the Galaxy where Vance Astro sort of recaps his origin, and his near future thing was there was sort of environmental collapse and people were having to wear bodysuits that covered them up completely because of the collapse of the ozone layer because of CFCs. And I remember a line very clearly that said a sort of society that favoured nice smelling armpits over anything else.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It obviously in the States at this point it must have been a bit of a concern, a bit of a buzz.
Yep. I wonder if that actually was banned in the States at that time, or if that was just something that happened on the Earth 2 version.
We'll have to hope that one of our listeners can fill us in on that, because I'm pretty sure it didn't become a hot topic in the UK till much, much later. At this time of publication here, Peter and I are both each 2 and a bit years old, so if we're remembering the hot topic stuff from when we were teenagers, then it's obviously quite a while of difference.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the Defenders story this was in. All right, there we are. Found it. It's in issue... Oh, there's Nighthawk. Hi, Nighthawk. Issue 26. Where's the line? We decided we value dry armpits and $3 billion aerosol industry over our flowers, food, and ultimately our health. Yeah, there we go. Right. But yes, it's nice to see a bit of environmental concern creeping in. Again, if it's been happening in a Defender story, then this is a bit more Marvelisation.
Yes, very true. On to our next team, which was Flash and Wildcat. With Wildcat stealing a motorbike and Flash doing some fun Flash action, digging a trench. That was cool.
That sequence was glorious.
Yeah.
Wildcat not really contributing very much, really, apart from some just snappy patter and punching out the entire Chinese army. I have to say, I think the artwork all the way through is pretty good.
Yeah.
But the Chinese sort of sequence with the volcano and stuff, that is all amazing. It really pops. It's really vibrant and dynamic. And there's a few other Rick Estrada drawn comics and Wally Wood drawn comics that we're going to be covering over the next sort of period. So, we'll have to see how it all compares. But I think this is the first time Rick Estrada has done something that we've covered on the show. And it's a great start. That first panel on page 13, while the Chinese caricaturing is terrible, and it looks nothing like Peking, as I imagine Peking is,
Yes.
it's still an amazingly exciting comic book panel.
Yes, it's probably more accurate than the Earth 2 version of Glasgow that we'll see in a few years' time.
Yes.
Don't worry, listeners, we'll get there.
Oh gosh, that's right. That's going to be fun.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And then we have someone make her debut.
Yeah, what can we say about Power Girl? It's not been said 1,000 million times before, or Power Girl's costume. I mean, Power Girl's a character I'm very fond of because she was used very well in the Giffen de Matteis Justice League, very well in there.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, her post-crisis continuity becomes absolutely horrendous. I think Power Girl and Hawkman are the two characters, I think, that suffer the most from the crisis because of just the basic fact she's the Supergirl of Earth 2 and Hawkman is bad management.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to see her turn up because this really does mean that we're moving forward. We're well into it now if Power Girl's arrived.
They certainly are, yes. But the weird thing is that they don't actually mention Supergirl. The caption says, obviously in Earth 2, Superman has kept Power Girl's existence a secret longer than he did on Earth 1.
Yeah.
But they don't say that he did to his cousin on Earth 1. It's just a strange way to phrase it. So
yeah. And I have to say, and with another wink to camera because I know the result of the outcome of what I'm going to say, but I really look forward to the first time Power Girl and Supergirl meet. That's going to be a really, really good story. Can you imagine, listeners?
I'm imagining it right now.
Anyway, elephant in the room. Power Girl's costume, Power Girl's boob window. There you go, we've mentioned it. We've got nothing to add to that discourse. I'm sure much more has been said about it elsewhere.
Schoolboys giggle away all you like. That's fine. No. It's a design choice, and the blank shape is explained in a later story as to why she doesn't have an S logo. So we'll get to that.
There's a little bit about it in the aforementioned back issue 106, which I'll just read very quickly because it gets it out of the way and it means we're addressing it. Power Girl's costume. Quote from Rick Estrada, I knew they liked the way I drew women because I had done a lot of romance stories. I drew girls sexy but not too muscular like they became later. I think they gave me a prototype for the costume and I sort of slicked it up. And yeah, the costume prototype was by Joe Orlando and features in an issue of Amazing World of DC Comics, which I have sourced. So I'll post that image on the socials this week. Keep an eye out for that.
Fantastic.
That's probably all she wrote at the moment for the Power Girl costume discussion.
Although, I must admit, she does make quite an impression because she literally takes charge when she appears.
Oh yeah, she's great. She's fearless.
She's like saying, these guys are doing this, these guys are doing that, I'm aware of all this and I know who the big bad is, so let's go and sort it.
Yeah.
Wow.
No mess. Yeah.
Where's this person been?
Yeah, she's great.
That's exactly what we need.
I pointed out that the panel of Sylvester that was used for his headshot on the cover came from page 3, and it looks as though, well, it's obviously the Power Girl headshot is taken from her arrival on page 16. Let's see if we can guess where Robin came from. It looks very much like the final panel of page 9, I think. Listeners, you could have fun at home cutting up your copy of All-Star Comics 58 and making your own All-Star Comics cigar band. But again, I just want to say the artwork is astonishing, especially in page 15, when the way that Jay's drawn when he looks up at Power Girl flying in, and then as they watch her deal with the volcano. It's quite loose. I've sort of said in the past too, I'm not a big Ditko fan because I find him a bit more cartoony than stuff, and this seems to walk a thin line between dynamism and the cartoon sort of quality, but it's very enjoyable. This is one of the most enjoyable superhero comics we've done for a long time, and as I think we said last year, calendar year 2024, there wasn't an awful lot of Earth 2 on the Earth 2 podcast, which is really the Spectre as the guy showing up for the Justice Society. So it's nice that this year we're going to have a lot more of them and the team actually to talk about.
Yep, and this certainly gets you all keyed up for the next issue. There's no way you wouldn't be picking it up after reading this one.
And listeners, you'll be delighted to know that we're doing issue 59 next week in our next episode.
Hey, but before that, we've got some correspondence to talk about.
Yes, now issue 58 does a very interesting thing in that the creative team sent out some preview copies to some of their fellow comic creator pals. So there's some correspondence in issue 58. There's a letter from Roy Thomas and one from Jerry Bales. So Roy had this to say.
Dear Editor, it was with considerable pleasure that I learned of the imminent revival of All-Star Comics, recommencing with issue 58. For precisely 25 years ago, at the tender age of 10, and as a paid-up member of the Junior Justice Society of America, I finally gathered enough cold cash to purchase a special cut-rate subscription to the JSA's original magazine. Alas, I received but a single issue of All-Star Comics itself, 57, and then, without warning or freedom of choice, 11 issues of something misnamed All-Star Western. Accordingly, by my accounting, National Periodical Publication still owes me 11 issues of All-Star Comics. I hope and trust that you will make good on this earlier commitment, thereby restoring my faith in comic book professionals as men of goodwill. And that's Roy Thomas, New York, New York.
Yeah, so I was obviously misremembering what he'd said in the Greatest Golden Age Stories Ever Told, but yes, it's not like Roy to harbour or to hold on to anything, is it? Editorial response reads, Roy Thomas was a prominent fan in the early 60s, serving as co-editor and later editor of Alter Ego, and besieging National with an endless series of letters pleading for the revival of the Justice Society members both singly and in All-Star. After moving to New York in the mid-60s and publishing Alter Ego number 10, he disappeared from fan circles and hasn't been heard from since.
Sure, Jerry, sure.
That's hilarious. Now we then get a letter from Jerry Bales, which goes like this. Dear Jerry, thank the gods of Earth 2. With every page of All-Star Comics number 58, my spirits soared higher and higher. You did it. You managed to breathe new life into the Justice Society of America without changing it beyond recognition. The introduction of the Star-Spangled Kid, Robin and Power Girl was a masterstroke. Their vitality, added to the experience of the original team members, makes for a dramatic new combo. However, the name Super Squad is too brash. Hawkman and the other old-timers would certainly insist on retaining their time-honoured name, the Justice Society of America. Please retain it, at least within the story, if not for the logo. Once past the new team name, I found myself in complete agreement with every choice you made. Hawkman, still serving as chairman, team assignments to interesting locales, the return of Brainwave, the JSA's #1 enemy, Star-Spangled Kid's acquisition of the Cosmic Rod along with a hefty dose of self-doubt, Wildcat's acute awareness of his middle-aged body, Dick Grayson's diplomatic background and youthful impetuousness, Green Lantern's thinking like a non-scientist, and Power Girl's inability to defy gravity completely, open brackets, shades of 1939, close brackets, bravo! But I especially like the continuity with past stories. This is most important, and I thank you for it. All in all, a terrific start with outstanding art. I expect and hope to see other art teams, especially on different chapters, but Rick Estrada and Wally Wood set a high mark for others to shoot for. Earth 2 offers those of us on Earth Prime with new hopes, new possibilities. Let the JSA lead the way, and that's Jerry Bales, Detroit, Michigan.
Jerry Bales is also a prominent fan in the early 60s, but he has since gone on to publish a number of scholarly works on comics, including the authoritative Index to All-Star Comics.
Oh, marvellous.
His current project is The Who's Who in American Comic Books. A postcard to him at 487 Lakewood Boulevard, Detroit, Michigan, will get you details.
I think probably it's safe to say that Jerry and Roy were probably the two people happiest in the whole world at the arrival of this book.
Oh yes, without a doubt.
So, obviously that's the contemporary correspondence from the advance copies that were sent out, but there's also some more contemporary correspondence to look at from All-Star Comics issue 59 and issue 60.
And the first letter in issue 59 says, Dear Jerry, I've been looking forward for months to All-Star Comics 58, ever since I first heard that the title was being revived, and I must say that for the first time in years the expectation did not overshadow the pleasure I got from the magazine itself. It was great. I've been following the careers of the old Justice Society of America members only since the revivals in the 60s, but for the most part I feel that the original characters are much more colourful and exciting than their Earth 1 counterparts. I thought your choices for the lineup in the new All-Star Comics were excellent. Green Lantern and the Flash have always been favourites of mine. Hawkman still has a certain amount of charm, and the two Docs, Fate and Midnight, aren't bad either. Robin and Power Girl are welcome new characters, but the Star-Spangled Kid and Wildcat have never really turned me on, and I would rather see you retain the old JSA name. Why not drop the Wildcat and the Kid and let the other 7 continue as the Justice Society? I've only read about half a dozen of the original JSA stories and all of their later team-ups with the Justice League, yet I must say that I've never seen them looking better. The art was great. I'm a Wally Wood fan from way back, and as long as you can keep him on the series, you've got a winner. But I think the stories are going to suffer a lot if you don't get the focus back on the traditional Justice Society. And that's from Harold May, Columbia, Missouri.
Interesting. Editorial response. The traditional JSA always changed around its lineup. In fact, the only member to appear in every JSA adventure between All-Star Comics 3 and 57 was Hawkman. We're planning to remain traditional by shifting our scorecard from time to time, and the changed name comes from an entirely different problem, to which our next correspondent addresses himself. Dear Jerry, several years ago after reading a JSA JLA team-up, I wondered why the Justice Society didn't have their own mag. Certainly they were more deserving of the space than some other features which were awarded their own titles. I later decided that they would probably just draw sales off from the Justice League and eventually kill each other off. This now appears to be a distinct possibility. The Justice League has been in a slump since before the advent of the 60-cent format, and Dick Dillon's artwork is stiff, while the story in All-Star 58 was quite good, and the Estrada Wood art was better than expected, open brackets, or Dillon, close brackets, harsh. Still, it has been over 20 years since the JSA has had to stand on its own. If number 58 is any indication of things to come, the JSA will easily exceed the JLA in quality, but quality doesn't necessarily mean survival. And that's from Paul Pinto, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
And the editorial response is, frankly, we're not looking for comparisons between the JLA and JSA, especially since our All-Star editor-writer is now one of the two writers regularly working on the JLA, which is of course edited by one of the story editors of the original All-Star. And our choice of names for the series comes from that desire to avoid comparison. Many readers would be hopelessly confused by the regular appearance of JLA and JSA titles, and it's hoped that the Super Squad title will ease that confusion.
That seems fair, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can understand the logic, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a bit more text here, saying it'll have more letters on issue 58 in the next issue, but they also tell us about the debut from Conway's Corner of the Freedom Fighters series.
Gasp.
And be assured, listeners, that Pete and I will be getting to the Freedom Fighters before you can say Jack Robinson. So, letters now from issue 60, which was the first issue of All-Star Comics that I bought when I started collecting the old DC Comics and that keenly and properly in the early 90s. I seem to remember I bought it from, what was it called? Dougie Dow and Russell and Fred's place in the Virginia Galleries. Obelisk.
Obelisk, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I seem to remember I bought it in Obelisk. There you go, listeners. There's one for the old local Glasgow fans.
I think that was the first one I bought as well, but I don't think it was the first one I read. In fact, I know it wasn't the first one I saw and read. My pal Eric had the one with the thorn on the cover, which I thought was awesome, but that's issue 60 is the first one I actually bought.
Interesting. I think when you mentioned that one when we did... Either when we mentioned Wildcat or we did the Rose and Thorn stories. Yeah, maybe tell me that before. So a couple of letters then from issue 60. The letter column, All-Star Comments, amusingly it's called, with images of Sylvester, Dick and Power Girl, very much like they are rendered in the cover of issue 58. And we begin, as we expected, the first revived issue of All-Star Comics caused a flood of comments to flow into our offices, and to represent as wide a group of these letters as possible, we're going to snip out the most interesting paragraphs for this column.
Every so often, the comic reader is given a gift, a comic of extraordinary quality and potential. There was Swamp Thing, The Shadow, first issue special, and now the revival of All-Star Comics. Although I haven't been campaigning for the great revival as long as Mr. Bales or Mr. Thomas, I've always been a fan of the annual JLA-JSA team-ups, and I hoped that someday they'd get a tryout of their own. The time has finally arrived, and no one should be disappointed, says Kevin L. Callahan from Brea, California.
Next letter reads, All-Star 58 had all the variety of the JSA tales of the 40s. Hawkman, the only member to appear in all 55 Golden Age adventures, is the perfect choice for chairman, and it's good to know that you're preserving such All-Star traditions as team assignments and travel to various parts of the world. This is something you don't see anywhere else, open brackets, except once in a while in the JLA, close brackets, and it makes for more interesting stories. And that's from Ed Via Roanoke, and it's in Virginia. Maybe Ross can tell me how to pronounce it.
There we are. The newest character of our team elicited a special response from some readers. Your best idea was Power Girl, though I despise seeing yet another survivor of Krypton, and despite the fact that she's only the second survivor in the Earth 2 universe, the fact that she seems only to have the powers outlined for Superman in Action 1 is a great blessing. I was afraid that Kryptonians in Earth 2 might have the same outrageous powers of the modern Earth 1 version, thanks to the JLA-JSA team-ups. So says Al Schroeder III from Nashville, Tennessee.
Next letter. The Super Squad is a good idea. Conceptually, however, it doesn't totally work because of the sub-teams. Too much bickering, too much dissension, all evident here. I prefer a concentration on the JSA, with the Super Squad tactically mixed in. However, you filled a large gap with the creation of Power Girl. Not only is she beautiful, perhaps a bit overdone by Rick Estrada, but she's enough of an enigma to keep us guessing and reading. And that's from Mark Zutkoff, Timonium, Maryland.
I thought Superman had only one cousin, Supergirl. Now this girl named Power Girl shows up and claims she's his cousin. Please explain, says Kenneth Campbell, San Antonio, Texas.
Editor response to that reads, I bet they were biting their lip, Power Girl is the artistic creation of Joe Orlando, and she is Superman's cousin on Earth 2. As we thought everyone understood, Earth 2 is a parallel world identical to the Earth of the Justice Leaguers, Earth 1, in many ways. But there are some differences. A different Green Lantern, Flash, Hawkman, Atom, etc. Their Batman is retired, Superman is really Clark Kent, editor of the Metropolis Daily Star, and Power Girl is the Earth 2 version of Supergirl. Okay?
And the final letter says, All-Star has wasted very little time in picking up its heritage. Even posthumously, the JSA strip was very popular, and I can't see how it will be anything but that today. There has never been a 58th issue like this one, and in all probability, there never will be. So says our old pal Bob Rohde, Columbia, Missouri.
And in response to that reads, so say we all, Bob. So say we all. Well, listeners, that's what everyone back in the mid-70s had to say about All-Star 58. You've heard what we have to say. What do you have to say?
You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com and let us know. Make sure you follow us on social media because we're putting up lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. Lots of great stuff lined up for this one, folks, so don't miss it. On Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth 2 Podcast, and at Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it's the number 2 for all of our socials.
If you're feeling generous, you could go to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leave us a positive review. You could find your way to our coffee page via our link tree and maybe perhaps buy Peter the price of a beverage as he edits down this massive 2-hour recording session.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness me.
It's worth it. Worth every second.
I'm amazed I've got a voice left, especially after the amount of singing I've been doing the last couple of nights.
Because David's been supporting menswear.
Imagine.
At King Tut's Wawa Hut in Glasgow.
That'd be a dream. I would sing all the Montrose Avenue songs. Yeah, as we said earlier, issue 59 will follow along next week, and then after that will be something you won't... I bet no one can guess what we're going to do after that. But yes, for part 2 of the revived JSA, be sure to join us in 7 days.
On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
I've been David. We'll see you again very soon on
the Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Yes, and the 6 individuals that we see are from left to right, the Golden Age Flash, Our Man, Wildcat.
No. Dr. Midnight, you said Our Man.
Did I?
Yeah.
Why? Oh my God.
Don't know.
Right, okay, right. Very interesting outfit. Blue leggings, red trunks, a red long-sleeved top, a blue oval on his desk. Please put that in as an outtake, thank you.